Welcome back to another post-race weekend discussion.
It is Rocktober. It is October 4th, 2021. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are at episode 518. Is that correct? 518?
That is correct, as I look at my legal pad.
As you look at your handy-dandy legal pad. Yes, it is a...
With all this technology, I'm
still rocking the legal
pad.
Yeah, it's well,
they're just money.
Yeah, they are. They're consistent and they're dependable, which is about all you can ask for these days. Be consistent and be dependable. Hope you had an amazing weekend. It was another busy weekend with some new races across North America with Ironman Indiana, the move a Muncie 70.3 from its traditional July date to October. It was on a Saturday. Then you had the inaugural Memphis race, which I think athletes are still trying to drive out of their parking spot. I heard they got a ton of rain. Messy. Yeah, I heard they had to pull people out because it was just like people just couldn't get anywhere. It was insane. And there were obviously a bunch of other races. Had the big marathon in Minnesota and a lot of other races obviously across the country and across the globe. So I hope you all had an amazing weekend. We chilled this weekend. It was and I watched college football. And the Tennessee Vols are back. We're incredible. We're going to win the championship.
We know what we're talking about. This is
all
about the Vols.
I'm not going to be prisoner moment. We played a ridiculously terrible Missouri defense.
I saw a sign from a Missouri fan that says, "We want Vandy."
Yeah, I saw it too. This guy was writing on dry erase board all game, and he was changing them because they looked terrible. We looked crisp, and we looked fun, which is the opposite of what we looked the last 15 years. We looked fun. Like it was, you could tell the guys were having a good time, and Pruitt, that was never anything he brought to the game. It was like we struggled to put points on the board, period. Like through three quarters, we didn't punt. It was all touchdowns, baby. It was really, really fun to watch. And we need that. I think we got South Carolina this week, and then we got a brutal stretch where we're probably going to get dominated and have our humility set back. But you know what? We're going to enjoy it while we can until we have to play Georgia, Bama, Kentucky, and the regular the meat of the SEC. But it was a good weekend. It was rain.
Did you say 15 years you've been waiting for this?
For some more fun to watch? Yeah. We haven't been fun to watch in a while. Because we've either had just the worst offense ever and a great defense, or a pretty good offense and a terrible defense. Because Tennessee Vols has always been run the ball, play good defense. Or the old school wide receiver U, which is what we used to be. We just played good all around football. We were complete teams, and we have not had a complete team in a very long time. We're still struggling to get there. We got a lot of young guys playing, not a whole lot of depth, but they're playing hard. They're having a good time, and they look like they enjoy playing for their coach, which is always a good thing. But that was it. I'm not going to touch on the Wisconsin Badgers because I know you said you're done with football and you're done with cable.
Done with cable. I did cut off cable yesterday.
Okay, you're done with cable again. We're
YouTube
done,
TV was my thing.
Okay,
yeah. That's what I'm afraid of is this 15-year drought. Like the way we've been looking, man. 20 years I've been spoiled.
Yeah.
And then Alvarez retires our kingpin and man of stability in the office at AD, and now the new guy's in, and he's kind of I shouldn't say I don't know anything about the guy, but we are certainly reflecting not toughness.
I'm not going to say that.
Our defense has been pretty solid, but man, what the hell?
Well, you guys can't string together long drives, which has been you can't
drive.
Listen, you can't. That's how the Vols were last year. It's like we had a pretty solid defense, but you can only defend so long when your offense continues to go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. You just get exhausted. We just get blown out in the second half. And you guys have always had very, very, very reliable 150, 200-yard rushers a game where you can pretty much dominate time of possession and control the ball, control the clock, and your defense could pretty much come out almost every series fresh because you guys would hold the ball for forever and run it and extend the drives. Yep. And now that ain't so much. So when you recruit to that level in that kind of a scheme and that depending, and you don't end up getting that, then things can go awry.
Yeah. So before we lose everybody, what's the triathlon analogy?
Oh, geez, there's so much. It's like I want to tell you. Well,
hang on a second. I got to play something real quick.
You got to.
This for fun.
Can you hurry up, man? I'm losing my flow.
C26 is in the house. Enjoy your finish line. This is your finish line. Well done.
C26 is in the house.
Is in the house.
I'm going to beat that up over the years. Huh?
Who was that?
That was the announcer at Chattanooga.
Was that Mike Riley?
No, that wasn't Mike Riley.
Okay,
He wasn't here.
He was probably doing a podcast. But no,
It's on Bob Babbitt's
it was
show.
a Bob Babbitt show. Yeah. I saw you post that on Facebook, and you were just like I said. I mean, I mentioned this last week that you have a very, I mean, I know you hate politics, but you have a very political way of running down the red carpet. Like you're the guy's like, all right, come on down.
Yeah,
come on. He's like, whenever you're ready. I really felt like we were going to see like bouncers come in and be like, all right, it's time. We're going to escort you off the red carpet. You're ruining too many people's finishing photo. Cause you lapped it up. I mean, I saw your, he's got run shoes here in the hub, and they were sitting on the side, and they're like, the whole bottom of it is red. Because you were on the red carpet, you were on the red carpet that long. The bottom of your shoes were stained. But hey, man, listen, when you make it through the end and you get to your finish line, soak it up, because you only get so many, and you know you should celebrate. You know, you should really celebrate. That was like a small piece, not where I wanted to go today with today's guys. I thought we could talk about micro goals and how everybody's getting ambitions for next year, and kind of how to set yourself up for success and having and succeeding in those, and what it really actually takes to achieve them, not just grabbing one out of thin air. But what you said I thought was great, because I've got an athlete that I work with who's very, very, very hard on themselves, and we do athlete highlights in our emails. They eventually get posted to Instagram, and I like to highlight as much as I can, and the athletes that I can when I feel like they really, have a highlighted weekend. And this athlete was like, I don't want to be highlighted. I really feel like I should only be highlighted if I do something incredible, like qualify for Kona or qualify for Boston. And so, if I do really, really well in this race, I just don't want the pressure of having to, make the highlight. And they ended up having like a massive, massive PR on a certain distance. And I emailed back and I was like, listen, I respect your wishes and I respect your thoughts and feelings on not wanting to be celebrated. But I disagree.
I won't put you in the email, but I'm going to blast you on the podcast.
But I said, but I will put you in the email.
Okay.
Because frankly, I said, listen, like, if we, and I get that thought process, because I for one am a person who struggles mightily with feeling like you accomplished something or being really proud of something, being very celebratory is not something that's really in my DNA. And I'm trying to get better at that. But like when you accomplish life is hard enough already, and I think if we don't celebrate enough our achievements, then we might end up not celebrating at all. Because if we're so hard on ourselves and we always expect more, then we're never going to feel totally fulfilled, like we've totally accomplished something. And the analogy I gave was, like I said, life's too short to not celebrate the wins, because you never know when you're going to get another one. Like life is hard. Life sucks sometimes. It is incredibly difficult. It is draining. It is stressful. It doesn't care about your dreams, your aspirations, the event you signed up for. It just kind of comes at you relentlessly every minute of every hour, every day. And when you get wins, you should feel like you not only accomplished an athletic goal, but you also kind of beat the odds that is life and the things that it can do to your training and your focus, your motivation. And I said, it's like, to me, like not celebrating the wins when you have them, when you truly have them, is like, going to the AA room and telling the guys that got 24 hours and 1 month and 3 months and 6 months and 9 months and 12 months, like, that's fine.
Biggie.
But no biggie. But we're not going to celebrate you until you get 5 years. When doing something like that, like 1 day feels like a miracle. And I honestly remember feeling that way when they were like, all right, who's got 24 hours? And you get up and get your 24-hour chip. And you kind of feel ridiculous when you get it. And you're like, I just basically just didn't drink like every other person on this planet, for 24 hours. And I'm getting this like, shiny little chip. But it meant something, because it meant that to you, to everyone else who's non-alcoholic, it seems ridiculous. Like, oh, you didn't drink for 24 hours? Welcome to humanity. Like, this is normal people can do that without even blinking. You had to focus tremendously. It feels like a huge feat, because for me, it was the first time I had gone 24 hours without drinking in like 5 years. And so you kind of felt silly, but you also kind of feel like, I'm like, man, like, okay, like one down. And then you kind of you do your deal. And then I was in rehab for 3 months. So I was like, I got my 3-month chip, and I was like, all right, like that's kind of a big deal. You get up and like people up, and like, that's the great thing about AA rooms is like, you can walk into a room of total complete strangers, but feel like, but feel at home, like with family. 'Cause you're all kind of going through the same thing, you know the deal. You all have kind of the same underlying disease and problem. And to see like people would like standing ovations for people who get like, and the funny thing was that you see people getting like 20-year chips. Like that's just mind blowing to me at that time. The biggest round of applause were for the guys that had 24 hours in them. Because I don't want to get emotional for some reason, but when you see people who, for them it's because you remember back how absolutely impossible it felt to just make it a day, because you couldn't make it a day, you wouldn't be there, right? Because like if you were, but to make it a day and then make it even a month or 3 months, or to the people who had some good solid time and then unfortunately went back out and drank and they came back and they had another 24 hours. You're like, God, thank God. Huge rounds of applause, because it's just incredible to feel supported, right? In your because small victories lead to gigantic wins. And the more and more like in you, and that was something, I think I told you this because you went to one of my meetings where I got one of my chips. I
think it was 1 year.
It was 1 year. Yeah, you were there. And after about a year, my sponsor, because again, going back to like not wanting to celebrate, not thinking it's a big deal. I'll have 8 years this November. He said, even if you don't feel like getting your chip, get it every single year. Because at that point, it's not about you anymore. It's about showing other people who would kill for that it's possible. He said, so even if you're not feeling, the AA vibe, or you're not going to as many meetings, or you don't feel like it's as huge of a deal anymore, he said, go and get it. Because the day you go get it, you might be the only long-term person in the room that's getting a chip that day. And a person that's waking up that morning, it's going to go in there with 24 hours under the belt, is going to look to see how many other people are making it. And you could be that person that stands up and it's like, when they come, all right, does anybody have over 5 years? You're like, I've got 8. And they're like, and so they look at that and think, so it can be done, right? You can be accomplished. And I've totally skipped our intro today. But as you can see, we cover everything. We cover triathlon, we cover life, we cover everything in between. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps, race previews. We oftentimes take the collective vibe of our athletes, or even a specific athlete like we have already today, and just open up a conversation, open and honest, no ads, no agendas. We just want to keep you happy and healthy. And that's what we do. And I have for 518 podcasts over getting close to 6 years. But no, so I just think it's, I think it's a great thing to focus on in that, I think Type A athletes have a very difficult time being proud, like truly proud, not happy, right? Because I think we sometimes get happy and like we can all be celebrated for all kind of different things in life. But it's like the stuff, like being able to be proud of yourself, I think is an incredible skill to have. I suck at it, frankly. I try to get better at it, but that's something that I want for every athlete to have is like, listen, like any kind of a win is a win. You don't have to celebrate it for 5 years, right? You don't have to celebrate it for a whole week, and I kind of like when Steve Magnus, one of our very first guests, he said, listen, whether it's your greatest win or your worst defeat, you get 48 hours. You get 48 hours to sulk and be disappointed and have your regrets and just kind of pout, and then you move on. And then on the same time, if you have an incredible success, you get 48 hours. Celebrate it, embrace it, be happy with because most oftentimes athletes, and this because it's like we have very, very, very high expectations. We're never done, we're never satisfied. But if you always live that way, and you always, in life and in relationships and in training and racing, is like you're never going to be truly happy. And that, I hope, is why so many athletes get into this sport, is to find something that they can be happy with and work through and prove that there's a lot of things in life that are worth getting these wins for.
Mm-hmm. You said Type A athletes have a hard time with that. Would you consider me Type A?
In certain things, yeah.
In certain things, yeah. Because I definitely have that, but I consider myself Type B. But like I can get obsessive, and I don't know if that's a Type A.
I think you're half Type A, half Type C. So you average out to a Type B.
Yeah. It's difficult, but what you're talking about sort of is a very stoic approach to things, right, in a way where, it's like celebrate for a couple days and feel good about it, but then, sort of just get back to life.
Work. Yeah.
And yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, we've been conditioned to be able to get sort of celebratory, like I put my finish line video up, and I kind of struggled with that for a couple. I actually thought about it for obviously a week. It wasn't even like that. And I went back, and I think it was Friday night or Saturday. I kind of went back to see it just because I wanted to see, how it looked, I guess. And sometimes I just feel weird or guilty about that, but I kind of liked it, and I'm like, oh, I do feel proud about that. So I mean, it took for me to settle in with the idea that, man, I just did another Ironman. It wasn't a complete blow up, it was all right. And I do feel good about that, but it is weird how different it was from some of the earlier ones, how that really just sent me soaring. And this one was more of just this kind of relief, and like you have an opportunity to kind of reset yourself or just kind of decide, okay, that didn't hit as hard as the last jolt. It wasn't like, it's kind of like, well, I mean, I think it's weird because it can almost be compared to alcoholism in a way, in a sense where, when you start drinking, those things really hit you. It's like, man, this is the best feeling in the world. Mm-hmm. And then the more you do it, the less effect it has on
so
you.
You need more.
You need more and more and more. So how do you satiate that? That's what I was just thinking, man, is this... like, I can't keep going down this road because it's not giving me exactly what, it used to. And I don't necessarily know if that was a good thing in the beginning or not, because I was certainly seeking some kind of high that really took me away from something. But now as you settle in and realize that, that's all I've been thinking about for the last week and a half, is like, nothing is important as feeling good and healthy. There's just nothing as important. It's not about posting things and getting a quick rush, and because that's what I think we've all sort of like fallen in that trap of, is like, man, there is an instant dopamine burst, or there is a way to kind of get attention, like in flooding in for like, half hour, half day, or whatever it is. But that stuff just doesn't cut it anymore, man. And I think that I was telling somebody, I feel like what's going on is this sort of weird combination of fear and narcissism in the world, where we're not as apt to get joy out of the experience in life as we are hopefully the result and or the accolades or something like that, or the results of how we did and how people react to it. And I'm just very intrigued by that, because it just seems like that, man. I mean, it's all about, like, for me, being out on that course was the journey, and it was a physical on-site, kind of reflection of everything I was going through in my life. And it was just a big challenge and a struggle. And then to like kind of sort of lop that in as the finish line is the journey. That's a really weird thing, And I just want to, I guess it's more about, like I said, feeling healthy and feeling alive and just feeling things and being okay with them.
Well, it's we live in a, listen, like we've always lived in a reward based society. Mm-hmm. Now it's just marketed 24/7, where you're your own marketing team and everyone else is looking and doing the same thing. Like I was having this discussion with some of our athletes and then their spouses and kids at a table at Wisconsin when I was up there, and they were talking about how incredibly stressed out so many kids are in their community about because everyone else every other kid at their high school or whatever they're all trying to get in like the biggest big schools, like the Ivy League schools, right? And it's become like the stress that's being put on them because obviously, like, listen, we all know this. Parents can really suck sometimes when trying to live through their kids vicariously. Like you see it and that's why, like, I have always kind of veered away as much as I can from like taking on kids as athletes, because I don't want to deal with the parents, frankly, because it's supposed to be fun, right? And like you said, it's supposed to establish good patterns and consistently and sticking with things and working hard, like things that make you a better person, not so your kid can go pro at age 6, right? And that's how a lot of parents gravitate. Like they feel like, we talk about not, having voids to fill and signing up for Ironman. Well, a lot of parents, I think, have voids to fill, so they use their kids as vessels to accomplish things and make themselves feel better. And And I think I mentioned this after watching that like varsity, the college, scandal, whatever, college scholarship scandal, whatever it was called. And one of this college guidance counselors or test guys was like, listen, it was like, now they just say, he was like, it's the parents that get into college, but the kid goes. And that's how so many kids are like, they're just stressed to the max, trying to get in the best of the best, of the best of the best. And what does it really even mean? And like, my mom would cringe at that because she's a lifetime academic. Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry, I'm the college dropout, but college is important. But you know what else is super important? Just like racing, Ironman is important. 70.3s are important. Sprints, Olympics, half marathons, 5Ks, whatever it is, they're all important. But the most important thing is your happiness and your health, right? Because those are the things that will take you as far as you could ever want to go. They're the things that are going to make you feel good every single day, not just jonesing for another race or feeling like you're only getting motivated to like that. That's just, it's a great, I think, question to ask yourself is like, if I can only get out the door to train for a race, then what does that say about where I am in not my development as an athlete, but my relationship with endurance sports? Is it, I have to have a race? And if it is, why am I like that? At the same time, if I just like to get out and move and do things and become healthier versions of myself, and I love that and I'm being happy, like, where's the give and take? Because, yeah, I think it's okay to have extrinsic goals or motivators sometimes, that we all need them. I think we all have them, even if we don't say we do. But for the most part, you need to be intrinsically motivated. In this time of year, that's why you see athletes struggle so bad, is because you have races that are so far away.
Yep.
And if you're only intrinsically motivated or extrinsically motivated by a race that's so far away, then you might find yourself becoming unhealthy and unhappy because you're that far away and you're not going to train. And then you're going to find yourself in that vicious cycle. And that's why, again, that this time of year is so important, not just to see gains for next year, but to just kind of keep the ball rolling. And like you said, maybe having a different perspective on being fit and just kind of hanging around and doing things that make you happy. Whether it's, being able to still go and run around and ride bikes with your kids, and not feel incredibly out of breath. Those are the things that last. Those are the things that you'll remember, not, the Olympic in April.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to one of my athletes, and we were going through that same discussion about off season and everything like that last week. And after our phone call, I went in and on Monday put the first kind of off season workout in there, and it was a 4-hour Epsom salt bath.
God, dude.
And I know.
I was going to say,
we were talking about
hands looked a little pruny.
Yeah, but I was obviously just kidding. But then I went back in and kind of restructured things, and it was sort of this different approach to what he had been used to, sort of a whole different week with, some different options and things like that. And he said, is it weird if I'm really excited about being in the off season? And I said, no, dude, that's really good, because most of us don't. And I look at, honestly, if I look at last year, that was a really good kind of microcosm of what we're talking about, because I didn't have anything on the schedule. And personally, I was lost, because I end up wanting to do that. And, it's like to have a goal out there, have a race out there, for me has kind of always been the driver. And that's the stuff I've been reflecting about, is like, man, that can't be it. That can't be it. Because frankly, I went through that race. It was super painful. And I'm like looking at it the whole time going, why am I letting this drive me? Why is this the thing? Just to put myself in that meat grinder and feel like shit for a whole day, and then just get done and go, I didn't do that as good as I hoped. And then, like, what does that leave you? It's kind of empty, really. Yeah. And people, said, hey, you're too hard on yourself. I get it, but like, I'm just trying to sort it out. I'm not bashing myself. I'm just kind of like stepping back going, okay, why do I keep doing that? It's kind of like why do we keep going out till 3 a.m? It's a similar thing. And I think that, a lot of us, probably have addictive natures about us now with things like that. And it's just so powerful to be able to kind of step away from that and go, man, is that going to make me feel good, or am I going to regret that? And I think it's like all these little decisions that we make on like today, is that going to make me feel good? Is that going to add to like where I want to go? Or is it going to just kind of drag me back into the same,
vicious cycle?
Yeah. I was thinking like a tornado drain. What do you call it?
I don't know. You see it like you drop a coin and
It's
watch
like,
it spin
shit,
around.
we're going
and,
down,
right,
like
the
we're going
slow-mo.
back down again, and I got to dig back out. And that's kind of like becomes the excitement phase. It's like creating your own excitement. I can get out of this, and I can get out of this backed in a corner situation. I always talked about that. Don't back me in the corner, because that's when I'm at my most furious.
Most furious. Listen, life's too short to be unhappy. And I think what I'm hearing you say, in therapy speak, what I'm hearing you say, Michael, is you're not being hard on yourself about your performance. That's not what I'm hearing.
Correct.
What I'm hearing is, and I think a lot about this is like, what does it say? What does it say about me as a person or an athlete that I have to have this type of like 12-hour endurance day where I basically beat my body all to hell, as basically a spectacle, in order to get my shit together, right? And get out and do something that where, even though I know that training and exercising and doing things that are aerobic, like that's good for me. Why do I need why do I need to back myself in a corner to, and swing and come out swinging? Why can't I just get up every day and, throw a few jabs and then go about my business?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be true or false?
Yeah. I mean, my whole thing was, reflecting on the whole
Journey
sum of its
it,
parts.
right, the sum of it. Yeah.
And it was like, wow, and I don't necessarily, I think that, you kind of get the thing, sprinkled in throughout training, where some days you're like, man, that feels really good. And then other days you kind of like, oh man, this is dragging me down. I just rode, it's Saturday afternoon, and it's Saturday afternoon now, and I just rode 4 or 5 hours, and all I feel like doing is sleeping this afternoon, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know if that's, a lot of times with me, it's just sort of like, all right, I got to go out and do this ride. I'll just suck it up on fumes or whatever. And I don't treat the whole day or two beforehand with enough respect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I get done with these rides and I'm like, all right, I feel really good. And then by the time I drive home or whatever from the battlefield or Natchez Trace or wherever we used to ride, I'd be like, all right, I think I'm going to get a quick nap in. It's like Saturday afternoon. It's a beautiful day.
Mm-hmm.
And you're laying around in bed going, oh, man, this can't be right, and then you sleep for 4 hours and then you feel good again. And you're like, all right, maybe I'll do the same thing tomorrow with my long run.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know, man. It's just, the way that it can kind of control your whole life. That's the thing that like upsets me personally sometimes, is that when I treat it like that, and the next thing you know, that whole weekend, even though you only worked out maybe 6 total hours, the whole weekend has been devoted to
those 6 hours.
Those 6 hours.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like the next thing you know, it's Monday and you're like, damn it. It's a weekend. I was telling somebody yesterday, it's like sometimes you just feel like, especially if it's a nice day out and you're sleeping all afternoon, sometimes I really enjoy rain because it gives me an excuse
to like not do anything.
Exactly. Like yesterday was kind of
that way. It was perfect day for that.
I sat around did training peaks all morning, and it was, it's just what I'm doing. I got nothing else to do. I can't, go outside.
I think, and that's one of the great things about endurance sports, and like why people gravitate towards it and then end up sticking with it, is that it's not only a never-ending pursuit of trying to get better, it's a never-ending pursuit of trying to figure your own self out, and what makes you tick, and what you need, and what you like. Those are the things that you find when you do long endurance events. Like, we had a bunch of comment that when we did the Ironman Chattanooga recap is like how absolutely, much like a full day environment is like going through all of life. It's like, every single thing, like, and what I think it does, it really, probes and sticks people into like that, having the same kind of perspective about life and like happiness and like, why am I doing this? But if I'm asking myself why, then, maybe I need to ask these other questions about it. But most people don't. Like, they just like, I'll just from the race. It feels good. Like I'll just go and do another one instead of like really truly looking back. All right, how this make me feel? What can I do to approach this in a better, healthier manner next year, to where it's not a one-day celebration, right? It's a 365 like mini party because I'm getting up every day. Sure, take some days off here and there, take a vacation, don't do anything, but throw a mini party every day. Get out and do something. Just like that's what, like one of the things I really try and tell people is like, just get out and move.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like people who are really struggling with staying consistent or life is super stressful. I'm like, listen, dude, I don't care what you do, but go out for a 30-minute walk. Just get out and move. Treat yourself right. Don't sit on the couch and sulk and be sedentary, because honestly, that's like the biggest problem here is just people are sedentary. Like they just sit all day long, 24/7, sit doing the podcast, sit doing Training Peak. It's like, I was trying to get up and like walk around more these days, but it's like one of those things where just like not having that, like you said, that 1 day rush. And that's why you see so many people, whether it's a full or a half or a marathon, that's why you see people have the post-race depression. It's not post-race depression. It's the depression that you've probably been having, but you've just been using triathlon or endurance sports to medicate it. And then it's gone. And then the race is gone. And then you're like, but all this hope. And there's like, well, listen, dude, if you were not addressing the rest of the stuff 24/7, 7 days a week, every month out of the year, then a race is just a race. And then especially if it doesn't go very well, then it's even worse.
Yeah.
And that's where I think so many athletes get into such a dangerous spot about putting so many eggs in one basket, that it's not about who they are as an athlete, it's about who they are as a person. And that's why you see that post-race depression. It's because you've taken away, it's like a person who takes actual medication for anxiety or depression, something like that. And they go to the pharmacy and they're like, sorry, like we're out for 3 weeks. You're like, oh shit. And then the whole next 3 weeks, you're you're on my own. And you're like, damn, like this. And then all of a sudden, all these, you're probably, even though you might not be anxious, now you're anxious about being anxious and you're depressed about becoming depressed. And it's just this vicious cycle. So when you remove training from that, and I oftentimes will try and at least kindly or softly put athletes in that direction of like, listen, like if this is this important and it's life or death for you, then we need to stop. Because you need to insert other things into your life that should be constant and healthy, instead of judging yourself every single day or telling yourself that you suck or telling yourself that you're not good enough. Like, sorry, I don't want to be a part of it. Like, that's not that's unhealthy. And you need to reframe why you're doing this sport in the first place. It's supposed to be for good. It's not supposed to be your method of self-deprecating conversation between yourself for going out for a run for 30 minutes that wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you see this time of year. And again, that's also why people go into these. This might sound overblown and dramatic, but it is this time of year going into where people start to have like a seasonal depression, because it's going to get cold eventually. It's going to be dark more than it is light. This is also when people coincidentally start eating more like shit because the holidays come around. And this is also happens to be the time of year people exercise the least. Mm-hmm. Okay. It is when I entered the ranch, which is where I got treatment from, they said specifically November, December, they get more intakes than they get all the entire year because of the time of year, the holidays. Most of it was like because stress was your family. They're like, the whole thing kind of like, implodes, but they're like, it's just a very, very, very hard. People isolate, people don't do anything. And that's what you see with triathletes is like, and endurance athletes alone, is like the off season to me comes at a very, very bad time. Again, going back to our holiday podcast, move Christmas to July wouldn't be as big of a deal, right? Thanksgiving would still be the king. Have something to look forward to in the summertime. But that is why, like, I think just committing to something small, to have something there. Again, don't commit. Like if you're already planning your race calendar with 9,000 races next year, and like you're jonesing for something. Like I had a guy sit next to me not Phil Joneson, just Joneson at the awards the day after Ironman Chattanooga. And he was like, all right, man, can we talk in the next day or two? He had just raced. And I was like, nah. I was like, get back to me in 3 weeks. Then we can maybe chat. But right now, I'm not talking to you about any of this because, like, then I had another athlete who did an Ironman overseas, and 48 hours, she was like, all right, had some time to reflect, and these are my thoughts, and this. I didn't respond because it was like Ironman Chattanooga weekend. Still hadn't responded yet. 4 days later, all right, coach, these are my plans, and they were totally opposite of the previous email. I'm like, see, this is why this is a coach's life, okay? But listen, like don't just let the dust settle, right? Let it totally settle till you get clarity that makes sense, that where you really look back and take a dive through things that make sense for your life, not for your not to fulfill your immediate racing needs to beat a certain time or to do a new distance or to get redemption from a race you did a week ago. Because you know what? In a month, you're going to be a different person. Your life's going to be different. Your dreams are going to be different. You're going to have a different perspective on things. Like, that's why the Ironman model will always work, because people will sign up for races a year in advance that they really don't have any intention in ever doing. They just need that immediate dopamine response of, I have hope today because I'm going to do an Ironman next year. They don't ever think about, crap, now I have to work out and make time and include training hours to make this happen. I would say that's why a lot of people do send them. They want this like instant hope of things are brighter because I'm going to do this event next year, when what they don't take into account is how hard it is to get to that starting point healthy and ready to go and to put out a decent effort. And then all the things that happen in between, right? If people have ever been taught, like, how unpredictable things are in the last 2 years, like, we've all learned, but some people are adapting and being flexible with it and not overcommitting. And some people are just continuing to go down the overcommitting path of driving themselves into the ground and then never getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I think I just want to point out that I actually love this process, right? It sounds like a challenging up and down thing for me, but like there's a lot about what we talk about that I truly enjoy. I mean, I love figuring things out. I like working at things. I like looking for, different solutions that are better for me. And I'm already at the place where I'm like, all right, I have already signed up for Ironman Chat 70.3 next year. And, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also thinking like, all right, what can I do? And I like the, kind of going back into the laboratory and sort of figuring out where things went wrong and whatever. And I don't want it to come off like I'm, bummed out about my race or anything like that. And I was just like, at some point you just hit a wall and you're like, okay, something's got to change here. And those are, when I started this sport, when I was 48 years old or 49, and that was a turning point for me. I was like, all right, something's got to give here, or I'm going to keep going down this same road. So I started running and then eventually got into triathlon, did Ironman. I've done 8 Ironman in my 50s, basically. And now I feel like, okay, that changed. Now it's like figure out a different angle on what you've kind of gone through now, because it's not, I don't want to say it's unhealthy, but it's not quite specifically working for where I want to go next, I think. And that process is, about, like I said, feeling happy and healthy and stronger and things like that, versus just sort of keep using it as like a burning fumes kind of try to way to be happy. And I just love it, man. Like I love when we sit here and talk about this kind of stuff, and it's really important, I think, for people to sort of intrinsically figure out their true desires and true needs and things like that. And for me, it's not, I don't think it's clear necessarily for anybody, especially when we get kind of deeper into doing races and training and things like that. And I think it's just very difficult to be happy with the simple things. You know what I mean? Like, we're always like, that race was a PR, it wasn't a PR, whatever, and I got to be fat. But like that can't really drive the ship, or it's going to get, kind of like shallow at some point.
Well, that's something I always kind of say to athletes in Training Peaks. You're like, it wasn't my best workout, but I'm like, you're right, it wasn't. You literally have one best workout and one worst. Everything else is in between. Mm-hmm. Like that's like to have that mentality of like, it's not, no, damn right, it's not your best. Like you literally have one. Like there is one fastest swimmer on the planet and there is one worst. The rest of us, we just fall in between like that. And to me, that's actually a relief, right? The fact that I'm like, I get to flutter around in a sea of everyone else instead of being like the one best and the one worst. Like that's how a workout should be. Like there's one best and there's one worst. And I think like something you said about just being healthy, like I went out trying to get back into a regular training regime since like coming like these next few weeks and months, honestly, like the best time of year for me to train, because most athletes are doing like little to nothing because they're in their quote unquote off season. And I went out for a run on Saturday, like at 4 or 5 p.m., which is like the latest I've ever done an exercise ever. Which I know, channel manager Mike Terali hit the river walk and like way overran. And I was so disappointed in myself when I got done. Not because of my pace, not because of the distance I ran or whatever, but I was just like, because like, as you know, like July, August, September are just jammed. It is like athlete first 24/7. And I was like, man, like you have got to do a better job of making sure you take time for yourself to stay healthy and stay focused, like on yourself, in training. And what I was doing is I was looking at my heart rate. I was like, dude, like it was sky high, like through the roof. And I was like, dude, you have gotten out of shape. Like you let yourself. I was very disappointed that I had put myself so far on the back burner by not training and making more time to do other certain things. And I was like, you need to get going. You need to get like and that's one thing. Like I'm not the best athlete in the world, but like it's humbling yet reinforcing to know that like, end of July, I was popping out like a 440, 70.3. And then in trying to keep my heart rate under control this morning and trying to really, really, again, got to practice what you preach, and not start out where you want to be, but start out where you are, moving forward so I can put together some good races next year. I was like, keep my heart rate in check. It was humid this morning. I think I was like barely under 10s for my easy when I ripped off like, a 7:30 half marathon in my 7:30. It was only like 7 minutes off my all-time PR just 2 months ago, but that's how, and again, and the day before that, instead of hitting the roads, I went over to the Guild Trail and hit the gravel because I was, how it is, a straight up and straight down. I was like, it was pouring down. I went and ran in the rain yesterday. I was like, you need to do stuff that's going to basically help you to disregard pace and feel better about it, kind of. So I was like, I just put a heart rate up and I was like, you're climbing up. It was just very reinforcing. I felt good. I got done. I was like, man, I felt so much better after doing that kind of climbing on a gravel trail, doing 60 minutes than I was even close to feeling smashed like I was in my afternoon 40-minute run the day before, because I took things under control. I felt good. I felt healthy. I reined it in. Same thing this morning. It was just because it's just about but that's also how quickly you lose it. Right? 2 months doesn't sound like a long time, but it is. To go from the fitness that I had in the very end of July to taking 2 months of, running here, swimming here, barely any riding, and then hopping back on, you're like, Jesus, like you've lost quite a bit. But the only way to get it back is to start back from scratch and be patient, and it'll come. You can't just force it all at once. But I think it's also a great lesson for those people who are thinking about, again, taking the off season as in like, I don't train at all for, 2 or 3 months, is like, be very grateful. Like the best thing you can do for your body and for your mind and for your training and the current fitness that you have is not to just give it all away and treat yourself like a carnival ride for the next 2 months, right? And like eat like crap and drink like crap and sleep like crap and stay up late, like, because you're doing all the work you did leading up to it a disservice, because it's going to be gone. You're going to start literally all over again. Do you have to stay structured and stay, doing things? No, but stay at least focused on keeping what you got and staying healthy and having that mentality. You don't have to have it structured around a race, but you want to keep some of it, because if you don't, then you're gonna revert all the way back to having 2, 3, or 3 months prior to where the fitness that you had. Then you're gonna have to work hard to get it back, and that's when people have a really hard time getting back into things, because all they do is think about, well, the last time I really ran, I was running this. And then today I'm running this. And then for most people, that doesn't make you want to keep running. It makes you want to run less.
It's hard, man. There was a couple times in my college career when I would go to every class and take notes at every class. And then maybe like after that day or later that day, I would kind of look at the notes and just review what I learned. And then I'd go through the whole semester that way. And by the end, the final exam, I felt like I didn't even really have to study. And I know we use this analogy all the time, but I just think it's so appropriate because it didn't feel like I was doing much work to learn this stuff. I would go to class, take notes, and then kind of look at them for like 10, 15 minutes after the class and just sort of reinforce it in my head. And then by the time I got to the final exam and I did a little bit of studying or whatever, and then it seemed easy versus when I would not look at any notes. I would just kind of like half-ass my way through the whole semester and then cram for 2 straight days. And that would seem super hard. And it's kind of the same thing. I think that we take for granted, what a 30-minute run today will do if we just keep doing that kind of thing day after day after day. Nothing hard, nothing crazy, nothing that's like mind-boggling or like super proud of or whatever. It's just sort of like studying notes. You just kind of do it and it sort of like stays into your DNA and it just sort of is there. And then it makes everything in the long run easier. But like you're saying, if you take 2 months off and you don't look at your notes or you don't study or do anything, you're always behind. And, you can kind of do that. And I think that's what I was talking about as far as like my racing goes. Is like you can really, suck up for that final exam, maybe 3 out of 5, but the other 2, you're just too wiped and you end up kind of like, it's just full of red marks, the next day. So you can't kind of keep that going. And I think the whole point is just to stay sort of solid every day on some level. And even if you don't like think it's a big deal, you just like yesterday, I could have easily done something for 30 minutes and I kind of put it off and I'm like, it's raining and whatever. And it's like, but every day you do that, it kind of just falls off a little bit, like you're saying, man. There's nothing worse than kind of going out 2 months after really you felt like you're in really good shape and then knowing that you're not anymore.
It happens fast. And I mean, and the thing is like what we talked about, you don't have to go all in to keep it. Like, we see this all the time with athletes who get injured or, or their bike's in the shop for 3 weeks or whatever, and they can't run for a month. As long as they're swimming and riding, like they can come back and like they haven't missed a beat. Like they can still, they might be a little more sore because they haven't had the pounding on their body from running, but they're at least the same or a lot of times faster, right? Because they're still working on their aerobic engine. When you don't do any of the 3, then there is no wiggle room for keeping your aerobic base. It just continues to decline and decline and decline. I think most of the papers that I've read is quote unquote detraining in terms of like your body being like heart rate gets real high. It happens after about 10 to 12 days of zero activity. Your body kind of goes into detraining mode where your heart rate, you might be able to hold the same power or close that you did 3 or 4 weeks ago, but you're going to see a drastic increase in heart rate because your body is becoming that much more unfit aerobically because you're just sitting around. You're not doing anything. And I think that's just, again, that's the important thing going into, the time of year where you're not taking things as seriously is just keep something together. Even if it's like going out on a Sunday and like not running, but going out on a long hike, like go out and just stay moving and stay active because again, like going back to like we all have addictive personalities. I think we're also addicted to the endorphin rush that is getting out and just being out in nature and being outside and doing things that make us feel good. Like no one will ever be able to convince me that you get a better endorphin rush from running on the treadmill than you from running outside. Like, running outside and just being outside in general does more for your mind, body, and soul than doing anything inside does. Same thing with riding your bike. Same thing with swimming. Like those do good things for you. And so right now it should be that kind of that fine balance of a little bit of structure, but also the flexibility to go out and do a hike, right? Or just a long walk with your dog, or to do this, or to not do that, but or instead of just stop and read a book, and do whatever it is that's going to like nourish the part of you that needs to be taken care of. What that will never mean is sitting on your ass for 2 weeks and not doing anything. It might mean, getting up, walk, to, write things down, make goals, do whatever it is, but be objective about it. One Ironman wasn't good enough this year. I'm going to do 2. Mm-hmm. It's like if I'm like I was looking at my own goals for next year. I'm like, all right, you raced once. you didn't finish up at Texas A&M. You raced okay at Ohio. You know what next year needs to bring? 19 races. I'm going to really get after. No, I was like 2 next year. That's it. Try to get 2 in next year. It's not about overcommitting. Again, like going back to like the addictive personality. If triathletes are like, all right, I think 1 race is good enough, I'm gonna sign up for 7. I'm gonna go all in. Or I wasn't able to. We've talked about this many times before. You pick up athletes and you go back and they've purchased like 19 80-20 training plans. The first one's like, 10 to 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours, level B, intermediate. And they have red for like 3 weeks. And then what do you see? Purchased. 15 to 16 hour advanced level, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, but that's the way athletes think. They're like, I missed on these weeks, but what's really, really going to get me going? More. I need more pressure on myself to get like, no, you don't, dude. You just need better time management skills. Like I hear it all the times. Like I really can't stay focused during taper weeks or during, down weeks. I feel like I'm like, just stay focused. Like, just rein it in. Well, that's what athletes do. If they know that 1 is enough, then they're like, oh, I'm shooting for too many. 5 is a great number. 5 is what I need to do. And it's just, and again, everybody has different goals of of what they're trying to get accomplished. But I'm telling you, before you make all these crazy, wild, and frankly, mostly irresponsible decisions, consult someone who has your best interests in heart. If you really want to develop as an athlete and get faster, a lot faster, stop signing up for 5 freaking Ironmans a year. Like, that's not the way to get faster. Like, if you really, really want to get faster, then focus on getting faster, not just getting stuff done. Speaking of irresponsible things, I want to give a shout out to 2 of our athletes, Danielle Winkler and Nancy Klingenbeard, who are doing the Ultra Tri that started this morning. They're going to complete the equivalent of 5 Ironman over 5 days. Which is an obscene, irresponsible thing to do, but I love them and support them and I've trained them adequately. But I don't recommend anyone doing that, but they started this morning. They got, again, 12 miles of swimming, and then they're going to bike. I would guess based on their times, they're probably going to swim 12 and probably get in around 65 to 80 miles on the bike before they wake up tomorrow and start riding again.
And I read that you said you get this weakness where you give this a go ahead like every 15 years.
Yeah,
so
to be frank, no more. It's done. Like, and I'll be retired in 15 years, so you're all done. You're finished.
No chance.
Like, this was the window, and it's gone. But to be fair, if they didn't ask, they told me they were doing this. That it wasn't a conversation, because I've been like, this is ridiculous. But to also piggyback off that, they did the same thing last year. They just did 3. So it's not like this is their first rodeo. Like they're both very wildly irresponsible and crazy, but also very smart, which is what you need to accomplish a feat like that. So, best of luck to them. They're in the water right now. She sent me a pic this morning. I said, hurry slowly for the next 5 days, because it'll be a lot of hurrying slowly, but good luck to all of them and, doing the best they can.
Yeah. I hope that this inspires some people to kind of like look at the off season with an excitement of just kind of, sticking around and working on things that will make them faster and make them feel good in the off season. I mean, it's always this time of year. And like you said, man, it's so easy to just sort of hibernate. I think that is kind of in our nature, especially if we live in the northern, if we grew up in the north, it's like, all right, now's the time to put on the fat
and eat some cheese,
get the energy going. But like, and I think that's okay. I think that there should be a balance with that a little bit. And that's why I think it's not a great time to go out and do extreme stuff, especially if you're not trained up for it. But, you kind of play that, frankly, if you live in the north, you will be inside a lot more. But it'll be good to get out and walk through the snow, get some snowshoes on, do some cross-country skiing once in a while, run maybe when there's, when it fits. But, like, I don't think you have to be crazy. I just think you have to just stay in the ballpark with the training, and especially if you want to keep going next year and do better. It's very difficult, but it doesn't have to be, some spectacular 3-month off-season block. It just has to be stick around, especially because we're not Olympians and we're just, where a lot of us are getting older, and it doesn't have to be like super extreme or impressive. It just has to be consistency. And consistency can be doing anything you want at any time, but just kind of doing stuff.
Just have a very focused chill about you for the next 6 to 8 weeks. The best advice I can give you is to pick one of the 3 sports to focus on and be flexible in the other 2, and just kind of do them whenever you feel like it. Pick one. So it's not overwhelming. It's something very, very achievable, very attainable. You don't have to commit to doing 2 sessions a day and long rides or doing stuff on the weekend. It's like, pick one thing, because listen, as long as you're doing one and sticking with it, You're probably still going to find time to do one of the other ones, at least a few times a week, or maybe once or twice to keep it in there. But focusing on one and not feeling overwhelmed by having to focus on 3 will leave you in a much better spot versus the one who will focus on none and then put everything on the back burner to where you're done, because you're gonna find yourself starting back from scratch in 3 months because you took nothing, not seriously, but you didn't focus on anything, and then you chose not to focus on running, cycling, or swimming, and now it's left you with nothing. Now you start back over from scratch again. They're gonna be extra frustrated and extra, irritable when you come back and see your pace. You're like, oh, I've lost everything. And you're like, well, guess I only got myself to blame. Pick one, because at least you'll stick around. And at least, even if you don't hop on your bike or don't get in the pool and all you do is run a lot, you're still going to keep up fitness. And your bike and swim might not be where it is now, but it'll be a lot better than if you're not doing anything.
Yeah. It's much easier to get back at that point.
Yeah. It's a flow thing. It's a groove thing. It's a time management, structure thing. Like, stay in that kind of feel, and you'll at least be within shouting distance of getting things back, at least like I said, in a much, much better position than when you started.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm down with that.
You're down. Celebrate the wins, baby. Celebrate the wins.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else?
No, I think you got me fired up to go trail running, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, a little bit.
Good. You should. That's all we got for today. Hope you have an awesome Monday and you had a great weekend. If you haven't or want to stop on by, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you want more info on our the coaches that we have and that have spots, you can go to the website, click on the coaches tab, drop down 3, and check that out. We've had a lot of people I saw comment and questions about the club that we have going on. We've got that still going on. It's year-round. I think we might be going through some changes here to make it better for you, the athlete. But if you are looking for a plan and need some accountability, things to bounce things off of, reach out to Mike. He's at crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you need anything else from him, that's where you can reach him. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com. If you want to check out what we're doing on the quote-unquote socials, head over to Instagram, c26_triathlon.
We're strong on the gram.
We're strong on the gram. I don't even know what it looks like, but I hear it's awesome.
It is good.
Let's hear.
Yeah, I would say, what is this? Is October?
Yeah, it's October.
At the end of October, we're going to be kind of revamping the club. But I mean, I have to say that out of the club this year, we've had dozens and dozens of Ironman finishers and many more half finishers. So a lot of people had a lot of success with it. If you can kind of stay on your own way, it's a good place. But anyway, yeah. So I guess that wraps it. Oh, we're maybe check the website and see there might be some visors up for sale. We just got some new visors in, a few other things, and getting those up there.
Get them on the website.
Get them on the website.
That's all I got.
All right, me too. See you, man.